gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside and study war no more. And I'm still terrible at this. That's okay, because I only do this for fun anyway, right? Never said I was a musician. So hi everybody, it's Music Monday. I haven't done one of these in some time, but for those of you who are new here, I do have a few new subscribers, so hello and welcome. For those of you who are new here, periodically I do try to do a music-themed or metal-themed book that I read, and it's not every Monday, but I try to make it always Monday. And before we continue, though, I do also want to point out it's Movember. For those of us who can't grow mustaches, I just want to bring attention. I was watching Criminali's channel this week, and he and some other YouTubers are going to be participating in Movember and growing some mustaches or facsimile thereof, because some people grow them better than others, and it's all for a great cause. It's to raise money and awareness for some men's health issues. The primary ones are prostate cancer, mental health, and testicular cancer. And I pointed out quite a few years ago now, I did some volunteer grant writing, helping out the local Testicular Cancer Society. And one of the things that they don't talk about is that testicular cancer affects very young men, the 18 to 22 age range. So the lady that I volunteered with, she had lost her son to testicular cancer at a very young age. I think he was maybe 20, if that. I mean, just incredibly young. So yes, so make sure you take care of those things, guys. Check it. Prostate. You know what I'm talking about? And I don't think these things are particularly helpful. So I'm going to take them off now that I'm finished playing and destroying your eardrums. But there is a reason I was doing the Down by the Riverside song. So this week I read Along the River of Flesh by Christopher Triano, which is the sequel to Gone to See the Riverman. And Down by the Riverside does get a reference as one of the spirituals that Edmund Cox is always kind of humming in his mind. He's got a sort of Charlie Manson gibberish way of speaking to other people, at least when he's speaking to cops, because he just kind of wants to throw them off the trail, right? For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, if you haven't read Gone to See the Riverman, I would do you need to read it to read the sequel? I don't think you do. I think it helps understand what Cox is referring to, but I think the book does enough referencing the previous book that if you only read Along the River of Flesh, you would probably do okay. But you would rob yourself of the experience of Gone to See the Riverman, which did have its issues, and I did, sorry, my back really hurts today, and I did talk about those in my review. So one more time though, if you haven't read Gone to See the Riverman, in my previous review, I did spoil a lot of things, so I would recommend reading the book first, and then, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, then watch the video. Or if you have no intention to read either book, by all means. So, spoilers ahead for Gone to See the Riverman. I'm going to try not to spoil Along the River of Flesh too much, but Gone to See the Riverman ends at a particular place in the story, and that is where we pick up with Along the River of Flesh. So, Gone to See the Riverman is about now again, you've been warned, spoilers for Gone to See the Riverman. So it's about a woman named Lori, and she drags her disabled sister along a river because she has become fallen for, been corresponding with a vile serial killer by the name of Edmund Cox. And he has all these weird groupies. And yes, hybristophilia is a thing. Probably because the type of woman who is attracted to that type of man, number one, I mean, either she's sick and twisted herself and gets off on it, or number two, she thinks that she can somehow change him. But at the same time, the fact that he is emotionally and physically unavailable is appealing, so he can be anything that she wants in her mind, right? So there's a weird kind of psychology there. So Lori has been corresponding with Edmund, and he sends her on a quest, which she fulfills, and in the meantime brings out all of her darkest secrets, finishes what she didn't do as a teenager that she's always kind of wanted to do, and in the end, Edmund breaks out of jail and, of course, kills Lori, and then that's where we pick up in the sequel. So the sequel takes place within a few days of the original book, and Edmund, now that he has got the key that Lori went and grabbed for him, and she, did whatever it was that she was going to do with the Riverman. So now he wants to go and make a deal with the Riverman himself. And so he sets off on a quest, but he is not alone. There are some people chasing him. So the first person that's chasing him is a policeman who's on leave. His name is Keith, who shot somebody during a raid and has now been put on administrative leave while he tries to sort it out. And a PI by the name of Gary, who also is battling his own depression and his own demons. And then the third person that is in pursuit is a teenage girl by the name of June, who is set up to be another serial killer groupie. But of course, we get a third act reveal that's pretty obvious from the get-go, but what are you going to do? So there were really, really great things. Oh, and I forgot, Gary is a private investigator, but he is searching for a missing person by the name of Jessica Hong, who was more than likely one of Edmund's victims, and he's been paid by her family to find out what happened to her. And I mean, nobody thinks that this poor girl is still alive, but he's going to give it a try. And what's... Okay, so what I found most interesting, and this is where we get to the music part of things, is that the Jessica Hong character, was a folklorist pursuing study of Southern blues music. And so there's a lot of reference to this wonderful background of Southern blues. And I wish we spent a whole lot more time in that in that realm talking about blues music. But it does sort of get cut short, I think, in my opinion. But it's still nice while it lasts. And so these people, end up following Edmund. And of course, Edmund is such a vile piece of shit. You can tell the author had so much fun writing this character, because he is just completely unredeeming. He has no arc, no change. He just is what he is, and he's vile. But on the good side of it, the pacing of the novel is really well done. So we don't have to spend more time with Edmund, who is a very unpleasant person. We don't have to spend very much time with him. We get these little interludes, we see what he's about, and then we move on to the characters that might have something more redeeming about them, and that aren't just about, murdering and slicing and dicing and fucking eyeballs and doing all kinds of gross things with the body parts. Like, ugh. Um, so that's one thing that I really found was well done, was just that we didn't have to spend any more time with Edmund than was necessary. And Edmund Cox obviously is an amalgam of a lot of really nasty serial killers, and I'd say probably a shout out to Edmund Kemper, who did very nasty things. But again, because it's fiction, gets ramped up a few notches. So eventually we do get to spend some more time with the Riverman, who is an absolutely fantastic demon. Both in the first book and now in the second book, I really enjoyed those segments where we spend that time along the way. And it had the ending kind of felt like a foregone conclusion, but it served its purpose. And now it does make me wonder if there's going to be another sequel. I don't know. I think the story could end very well where it did, or it could lead to another sequel. But it was a pretty good read. It was it was well paced. It was, I think it was just over 200 pages, so it's not a very long book, and it does keep you reading and kind of wondering. And then and this is where the next segment comes from, right? This idea of the rivers and there's a point where Edmund says that song Down by the Riverside is not about, it's not a spiritual song, and it's not about God. So that one, they never quite come back to it, which I thought was interesting. But I guess you're kind of left to make up your own mind. So the other book that I read this week, which I did not have fun with, but it's the next one on my list of 10 books I want to read that I've been trying to read for a very long time that I just never quite got around to finishing. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. Oh, what a snore. I mean, you would think that a book that is so heavily, lauded and important, look at colonialism, and would be more interesting, but ugh. So first of all, it does have that Victorian framing device thing which is a bunch of people are in a room and somebody's talking to them about something, and it just gets really boring because the further removed you are from the action, the less interesting the action gets, because number one, they're talking about it, they're not doing it, and number two, they lived, so there's no real tension. So anyway, the plot is pretty well known. It's about this guy, Marlowe, who becomes the captain of a steamboat, and he's on a river in Africa, which is never expressly stated to be the Congo, but it's the Congo River apparently. And he is going to seek out this guy Kurtz, who apparently went native or something, but really he just kind of stole a bunch of ivory and everybody wants it back. So as he goes along the way, he sees a lot of violence, a lot of but the thing is, the violence is so sporadic and so removed, it's very hard to even care about what he's talking about, because he's just kind of paddling by it. It doesn't really have much effect, and it's really annoying. And the other thing that is just rough to read is the depiction of the Congolese people and the villagers that he passes along the way, and the workers that, they live there, but they've been colonized, so they have to do things for these horrible people, and through a modern lens, it's just, but the concept is supposed to be sort of that this trek along the river brings out the worst in people. And one of the reasons that I was kind of trying to read it, but I really didn't enjoy it, I was wondering if Along the River of Flesh did have, and to a lesser extent Gone to See the Riverman. This idea of a journey, and then the more time you spend on this river, the more into the darkest parts of yourself you end up going. I was just wondering if there was any kind of, influence or suggestion from the story, whether it's the book or even the film Apocalypse Now, which is famously an updated and loose adaptation of the book. But I didn't see too much. I just saw an awful lot of really horrible depictions of the people along the river, and a bunch of guys. They're all kind of weaselly, and they're all trying to make a buck, which I thought was pretty honest of what trading people are doing on trading posts, especially at that time. So I don't know. Maybe I need to read it again, or maybe I need to read it with a less bored and skeptical eye. But yeah, I really didn't enjoy Heart of Darkness. So those were the 2 books that I read this week. So one book that was good, one book that was not so good. But they kind of had similar themes, and they kind of had, a similar setting. So thought I'd talk about them both at the same time. All right, well, that's going to be it for me for Music Monday for a while. And I hope you're reading lots of horror. I hope that you'll head over to either Criminali's page or one of the other YouTubers who are participating in Movember and give them some props. And if you have some money, a little bit of money tucked aside that isn't working too hard, you can shoot them a donation and take care of some men's causes. Hope you're reading lots of horror. Have a great day.